Hey, you. Yeah, you. You want to talk about some Diablo 4? Good, and I mean barbarian. Okay, so we're gonna go over price, graphics and sound, story and cutscenes, character building, the RPG, gameplay, endgame, and replayability. Then let's crack on into this. So Diablo 4 launches in about 3 hours and 10 minutes as the time of when I was doing the voiceover. I didn't get it uploaded in time. It is what it is. But you can buy the $100, $89, and $69 edition. Don't buy the top two. They are not worth it for what you get. Maybe if you want to get the battle pass for free or whatever, you could do the digital deluxe, but that's about it.
A fortress unguarded. Bad sign.
Lorathna, how bizarre it is to hear from you. Your charming apprentice arrived just this morning with equally disturbing news, but he made no mention of you. Am I to assume you did not send him? Please, join us at Orbe as soon as you are able.
So your character's voice actor is not the best, but the voiceovers for the journals are pretty good. The combat sound is pretty good. The music, when it does play, is very fitting. The abilities that you use sound pretty meaty and impactful, which is nice because I know that was a problem with D3. Your abilities didn't really feel that impactful in D3 because of some of the sound design choices and among other things. But the graphics are pretty good. I think they're good. I think the art team did a really good job. I mean, it's an ARPG, so I don't expect it to be the most insane graphics ever. But as you can see, the light rays and stuff all look good. They actually light up your character, and your character has shadows, so it's pretty good. Most of the NPC voice acting is good, but a lot of the characters I didn't like. They sounded kind of like they were bored when they were recording, but it is what it is. This wall caught my attention with the graphics. It's a lot of attention to detail. Having like the Templars on the wall in a monastery was pretty cool. Story. Now, story, the cutscenes are amazing. Obviously, they spend an insane amount of money on their cutscenes, and it shows. They're really, really nice cutscenes. Diablo's always had amazing cutscenes.
Looking for a servant of the
Like
demon
the Imperious Diablo fight was great and stuff, so
found.
Blizzard in general does a great job at that.
I will take it from here.
But I didn't like how they make your
you?
character kind of this
Fractured Peaks.
you do a lot of fetch
I
quests,
saw his
and the
pale
people
man
that are supposed to be
vision.
helping you kind of constantly screw you over
Enough.
or
is
are just
yours.
useless.
Just keep
Like
away
this
from the
guy,
bubble, both
you
of
meet him very early in the game, so it's not really spoilers. But he says, I'm going to go off somewhere and do something important. And he talks to like one person in town, gets depressed, and gets hammered. So the characters and their motives definitely could have been written better. But it's an ARPG story. I'm not going to like trash on the story. The cutscenes are sick, and the cutscenes like this, they didn't have to put them in the game. So, you know, kneeling down and talking to your boy is cool. I like it. It kind of adds some flavor to your character because he, you know, speaks and has a dialogue with one of the existing
What
characters.
happened to you?
I would have liked them to expand on it a bit more, but you kind of just do the minimalist replies, at least as the barbarian.
There may also have been a brawl with the goats over this patch of mud, but I like to think I...
So now we're going to get into character building and crafting, the ARPG side of things. This is the barbarian, so I probably have the most slots. The tooltips are all pretty good. I do think the jewelry needs to have tooltips that tell you like what's better and what's worse instead of having to, you know, compare the two yourself. But it's a nice touch that when you break down equipment with gems, you keep the gem, and it's a nice little time saver that they implemented. Here's me looking for the crafting system because I hadn't crafted anything all game, and I was like, let's try and craft something. But there is no crafting system really, at least for weapons and armor. They're, you get them as drops, and then you can upgrade them, which the upgrade system is pretty cool. You can upgrade things up to 4 times. I personally didn't touch it because I wasn't max level. But I was really surprised that there was no crafting system for like your weapons and armor, especially because like anything you buy is super expensive at the start, and like you don't want to like upgrade your weapons because it's like 100,000 gold or something. And this is all a 44 character, and he's a 45 by the end of this like review session. But I pretty much blew through half my money to reroll one stat on a piece of gear that you'll see here in a minute. And I didn't get to try out anything else really in the crafting system. But it did look good. It looked like you could modify your weapons a lot. For example, you can, take the legendary abilities and put them on yellow gear and they turn into legendaries. That was really cool. But I don't like how you can't do it with uniques. I know uniques they're supposed to be unique or whatever, but I think that limits your transmog ability. For example, if you get the unique sword for this bleed build that I'm going, then I can only transmog with 2-handed swords. I can't do a pole arm or an axe or anything like that if I had wanted to. But here's me kind of showing, the upgrade system, and just how easy it is to manage your inventory in general. They did a good job with that. And I'm going to go through most of the vendors here. The potion system's pretty cool. Every 10 levels ish, it obviously changes. You can see what levels you get it. You can get a slightly better potion when you have the materials and the gold. The gold cost isn't that expensive, and the materials you'll get just by playing. I personally did all the side quests on this character because I kind of wanted to be like one and done with the side quests. They weren't bad. They were okay. Sometimes they had you backtrack from like city to where it is, but that's not really a crafting system thing. Here I'm just kind of showing how you combine, lower tier stuff to get higher tier stuff, and then you can craft something with it. Overall, the crafting system is... I like the crafting system, but I was really disappointed that you can't craft your own, let's say yellow, gear from a blacksmith or something like that. I don't really know why that was missing.
Cursed, perhaps?
But here's the Codex of Power, where you can basically extract legendary stuff. So here's all the ones I've gotten from a dungeon, or from, I assume, breaking down legendaries, but I haven't broken down any yet. Something interesting happens here where I can, change it over to the Codex of Power, and it seems to be at full strength. But if I take a different item and I try and put my legendary amulet onto this item, it is no longer at full strength. You'll see that it's like 6.8 seconds for the amulet, and you obviously have to have a material from breaking down legendaries to do this, which I hadn't, because I hadn't broken down any legendaries yet. But it goes from about 6.8 seconds to about 4.5 seconds, I think it is. So here it is. Here's what you'll extract out of it. And it says 4.5, and I looked at it and it's like, that seems kind of low. And it was the full 90 seconds. And then I looked at the thing and I was like, wow, I don't know if I'm ever actually going to do this. I don't know if it's because it's a max level item or not, that you get the max stats out of it. But I was like, yeah, I don't know how often I'm going to be using this and making my yellow gear legendary then, unless it's just way better. Because, almost 2 seconds off of complete invincibility is really, really good. But here I decide that I'm going to re-roll my helmet, and my helmet has some intelligence on it, so I'm like, what the heck? It doesn't say that you can re-roll each one endlessly. The tooltip isn't the greatest. You can, but I ran out of money after the first time because, you know, it's like, you know, 27,000 to enchant it the first time. Obviously it makes it untradeable. And then I picked the cooldown reduction. Doesn't really matter. I was just, you know, testing it. So you get 2 options and a no change. And then I was looking around for it, and I didn't realize that it had gone from 27,000 up to 135,000. So that's going to be a bit of a gold sink for late game. But I figured I should try it, you know, put it in, since this is the crafting and kind of RPG side of the character. Here I'm looking at the transmog system, because everyone knows every MMO and, you know, RPG games endgame is fashion. But there's only 9 pigments in the game. I was super disappointed with these paint palettes. Like, they need to do something about the paint. It's really bad, honestly. This was definitely a low point of the transmog system for me, and a huge letdown in general, as the colors are really limited, and it acts like it uses this color wheel, but it kind of only just uses the primary color and slaps it over everything. I don't know. Some of them look better than others. Like this orange one looks okay. It doesn't really mess with the fur on the cape. But the red one, for some reason, turns the fur on the cape red. This one turns the fur on the cape the secondary color. So I don't really know what's going on with the dyes, but it would be nice if they would rework the dye system at some point. I really didn't like the dyes. Anyway, moving on to the armor. I think all the armor actually looks good for the free-to-play stuff, and you don't have to pay for it through the shop. It actually looks nice texture-wise. It doesn't look like they gypped you in that regard. Sadly, a lot of them are the same. I obviously only have about half the transmogs unlocked on this character, as I, you know, haven't broken down a bunch of the legendaries and stuff like that yet. But I would have liked a little more diversity. For example, I so far haven't been able to find any full plate armor for the barbarian, and that was a disappointment, because I'm like, you know, I get it. Barbarians are like the fur leather wearing guys, but if I have 41 different transmogs that look like that, why couldn't 5 of them have been different, right? I don't know. The guy wearing a robe or full plate armor or something like that, right? You know, it just seems kind of like they did a bunch of different variations of the same. The ones that they did looked really good, but maybe in the second half, when I unlock, you know, more of them, they will look a bit different. Here I'm just showing off kind of some of the weapon transmogs, and I think the weapon transmogs look nice, but they need to make all the two-handers be able to be two-handers. So like a spear can be a sword, a hammer can be a spear, whatever, right? You know, if it doesn't fit the animation, then people can change to what fits the animation if they like that. But yeah, I was just kind of showing some clipping issues here, where it seems like the big two-handers on your back kind of clip through everything, and your one-handers clip through your cape. So there are some clipping issues, but I don't think anyone really cares about clipping issues if they can get the look that they are looking for. But me personally, I would have liked to have seen, you know, swords be able to be pole arms, and, you know, any one-handers be able to be other one-handers, and any two-handers to be two-handers, basically. Here I go into the shop, just to kind of show you guys what they have in the shop. It definitely does seem a bit nicer than the stuff in-game, but not enough so that I wouldn't wear the stuff in-game, as long as there's some variety. So
Interesting choice.
The shop honestly hasn't pissed me off that much because, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't wear that or most of the ones in the shop. They kind of make they just kind of add LEDs to your gear, you know? Like this one has a water effect trickling down it that I
It
wouldn't
stirs
necessarily
you,
want on
yes?
my character. They do a little kind of scummy thing where they split it into two. You don't get the backpack with the armor that you buy. But yeah, you basically pay money for the
very
glowing
good.
stuff. But the armors themselves don't necessarily look that much better than the in-game. I'd say this one shows a good amount of detail. Maybe it has an advantage over the in-game one, but it's kind of just something different,
Very
I guess.
good.
Even though the thing I don't understand is if you're going to do a store and you're going to make all barbarians look the same, then the things in the store should be what, you know, is unique, right? I guess. For example, a robe or, you know, an outfit that you wouldn't think a barbarian would wear, right? But overall, I mean, I'm not going to use the store. It's those are the prices for everything, and there's really no reason to use a store. It seems so far only cosmetics, and I know the battle pass upon full release. The shop does refresh though, so they might use this to put some scummy stuff in. The social system is pretty good. I haven't had any problems with staying connected with my friends. I've played with my friend Harrison and Jordan for a couple hours each. Both worked. I'm kind of just showing off the clan screen. It's pretty basic, but I mean it serves, I guess. Here was a personal vendetta of mine because I was just showing that, you know, shields are used in this world, and you know, in this town, which is supposed to be the barbarian home,
I
they
can't
have
equip
shields.
this.
But for some reason, the barbarian can't use a shield. It just doesn't make any sense to me. If you want to make it a one-handed weapon for dual wielding and make it just have the stats as a one-hander, I just don't understand why they can't use it. It's like a cosmetic thing that's kind of like just a why. So here's some Diablo 3, and we're going to kind of cover the skills system and why I'm a little disappointed here. In Diablo 3, you could have like 6 alterations of every skill in the game. And there were more choices. There were like 4 for each category, you know, primary, core, whatever. Some of them have 4 in this one, but some of them only have 3, like your ultimate only has 3. Most of them have 4. I think the ultimate's the only one with 3. But the point being is that in D3 you got 6 alterations to them, and a lot of the time it would change their animation completely and make them either snow, ice, or fire, which was a really nice touch because then you could be like, oh, I'm a fire berserker and all my shit does fire, right? Or you could be in you know, an ice mage and all your stuff does ice. You can still do that in this game if your base skills allow it. So like you could probably do a full ice, you know, sorcerer, or a full electricity sorcerer, full electricity, you know, druid. But you're not going to be able to do something like take a barb and, you know, make him do lightning damage like he's Thor or something, you know, or you know, make him on fire, make all of his abilities do fire damage like he's a demon or something, you know, whatever. Anyway, that was a letdown for me personally, and they kind of made up for it with the Paragon system, but not enough for the loss, in my opinion. Paragon system is a really cool system, and it lets you really change your character in meaningful ways, but it is a lot of passives. There's not really anything that it does for your animations, and it is a fun system, but I think it should have been the cherry on top instead of like what replaces, you know, the old more options kind of thing. And I know in Diablo most people are like, oh, you just use the best one. But I mean, unless you're climbing the ladder, why do you use the best one, you know? If you just make a seasonal character, hop on, have some fun with some friends, hit max level, and, you know, get like a top 200 on the leaderboard, then you really don't have to use the best stuff most of the time, depending on your class. You know, some classes are stronger than others, so you have more leeway depending on what class you play. But at the end of the day, I thought I should mention it. I don't know why we went from the skill boxes to a skill tree, but then, you know, kind of lost some options. So the moment we've all been waiting for, gameplay. All right, so here's some D3 gameplay. This is just me leveling a character on the last season I played. Nothing spectacular here. It's a monk. Just kind of showing the old combat versus the new so that you can get a feel of which one you think is better, or if you think, you know, one's better in one way and one's better another way. This character isn't max level. It's like a 62, as you can see, and it's on a pretty high torment for the gear I had, so I just had it slap on a shield and do no damage and eventually kill him, right? So by no means is this one an optimized character, but it does show you some of the animations and stuff you can do in D3. Now for D4, it is a lot more visceral because of the sound design being a lot better. The animations in general are more fitting. Your characters are fun to play, you know. When you call in an ice comet, it looks like an ice comet. When you
I must wait.
rend someone, it looks like you're rending someone. The bleed animations are good. It feels pretty fluid. I did run into a few problems with the combat system where it constantly wanted to make me move with my flay or whatever your base ability is. So you'll see here I go into the options to change it. And right now I have the combined move skill and all that stuff. So I uncheck it and I rebind the base move skill. As you can see, it's on the left and the other one's on right. So I don't know if that's just a basic move skill thing or if it's since it's a melee ability, it's trying to get into range. But I would much rather if it just force casted it personally, you know. Here I die. Laugh it up, boys. I know. But that's kind of the weird thing about this game is the difficulty curve is a lot like D3. You'll just be running along and then suddenly gray mobs will one-shot you and you won't necessarily know why, and deep inside you know that you didn't just have your buffs up before you started fighting them, but you're also like, oh dude, these are 20-second cooldowns. I don't know if I want to burn these. But this is a world tier 2 and my guy's level 44 and he just has whatever gear I picked up off the ground, so it kind of makes sense to get, you know, one shot randomly. I go back and fight him and beat him. But in general, the gameplay is good. It doesn't feel bad. I probably only died on this character twice. This was one of the times. Another time, it was a similar situation where I just kind of was fighting him and then got one shot. But as you can see now that I'm like moving around and trying to dodge and stuff, and I have my buffs and passives up, and I'm actually like ready to use my health bot, it's not a big deal, and I, you know, beat the group just fine. In general, I really do like the combat, but I think there should be some updates for like debuffs, because clearly I have a debuff on me for being in that area, but it doesn't tell me. That wasn't just leftover poison from fighting, that was actually being down in the toxic pit. It would be nice if it showed on the buff tray or, you know, debuffs and stuff. That might be something in settings that I just didn't turn on. I'd go look at that. But I would personally have it on by default. Just, you know, because it's intuitive, right? And
I don't have
moving
enough
on
fury.
to how the skills kind of like flow together.
Not ready yet.
They actually have pretty good flow. I expected the barbarian to be pretty clunky switching between weapons, but I never really had an issue unless the server had a lag spike or something like that. So the combat does feel fluid. It feels good. It feels impactful. The sound effects help a lot. It's not as fast paced as D3. I know Endgame it'll, you know, become faster. and you'll kind of start, you know, mowing through mobs a lot more than I am now. You'll kind of turn into a human lawnmower. That's kind of how it works in Diablo games. Once you hit endgame, ARPGs in general, you kind of just clear entire screens of enemies late game.
Fury.
I don't have any footage of that myself. If you want to see what the true endgame looks like, I'm sure there's plenty of videos of reviewers who got copies early. Anyway, I didn't have the luxury of getting the game a week before launch to, you know, hit max level and stuff, so I paid the extra money for the extra days. Couldn't quite hit max level to show it to you guys. I know all the stuff you do at max level. I did research it, so I will give my opinion on it, but that's for the end game and replayability section.
I don't have
This
enough
particular
fury.
area kind of shows a flaw in the combat for melees. Unless you're just clearing entire screens of enemies and everything's getting one-tapped, then the ranged trash mobs really add up. And unless you're just spamming dodge constantly or you have your defensive up almost at all times, they do seem to be more annoying than they should be.
I'm low on
I'm sure
fury.
it's just because my gear's, you know, not up to snuff and I have all legendaries and it's not min-maxed. I'm sure that'll change in time. But one thing that won't change with my gear going up is that as a melee, all the ranged enemies run away from you, which is kind of aggravating. The bosses run away from you if they're ranged. You know, the people that spawn the bone barricades, you'll see a boss in the clip after this one, or the last clip about gameplay, where he keeps spawning barricades, and I'm not quite in melee attack range, and that felt really bad. And I think I was in attack range, it's just the game didn't think I was. So if it would just force cast your ability, that would be kind of nice, or at least have that as a setting to force cast your ability. But in general, it feels good, you know, cutting down trash, spreading bleeds, knocking mobs down. It's a Diablo game. I'm sure that game will pick up. I don't think it'll be the absolute screen clearing game where you teleport every 3 seconds that Path of Exile is, if you play Path of Exile. And, you know, non-GR 130 area Diablo 3 where you do just speed run everything and kill everything, right? It does seem to play at a slower pace, kind of like the very high GRs if you're on a weaker class. But your moves seem a lot more deliberate. You do plan things out. One problem I had with my rogue is his defensive ability, where you get like 5 charges or 6 charges that block attacks and reduce the damage incoming. All of them always got used by trash ranged
Don't
mobs
have enough fury.
very quickly after casting it. And so if you wanted to play the true swashbuckler in your face rogue, you might have a hard time with that unless you get a bunch of lifesteal. And there's some passive nodes to get lifesteal from crit and stuff. But in general, in leveling, it wasn't super fun to play as this like swashbuckling, more pirate style rogue, due to my defensive that let me sit there and fight people would get used up by trash mobs or random AoEs ticking on the floor, and then it wouldn't really block the meaningful attacks. But I'm playing my rogue with friends, so it's not a really big deal because the mobs chase my friends around and kill them. So the boss mechanics are relatively basic, but they're honestly way better than like D3. They're on par with a lot of modern games. They, for lack of a better term, stole a couple mechanics from Lost Ark, and everyone knows Lost Ark has really good mechanics in their games. For example, one of the wolf guys in the first region you fight has the same abilities as the wolf in the start of Vulcan, the Gate 1 boss. I just found that kind of funny.
I'm not ready yet.
Overall, I enjoyed the gameplay, but it's not groundbreaking. So now it's time for Endgame. The Endgame, I haven't gotten to try much of, but I do know what it is, and I have gotten to see what it looks like and play a little bit of it. There are obviously the public events and stuff, which you can kind of just use to get a little bit of gear. They're not, you know, too insane. Just kind of something to do while you run around. Maybe they give better rewards on higher torments, and you might run in groups to farm them. But the main end game is, if you're into it, PvP, the grind for the renown system, which will basically just make your character stronger. Then obviously gearing up, which comes from Hell Tides, which give a currency and will give a specific gear slot that you can buy with that currency, for example, amulets. And then the Whispers of the Dead system, which is kind of like bounties in D3, where you collect 10 Grim Favors that show up on the map. And this is for higher world tiers, so 3, 4. And you get to pick a reward with some random stuff, like glyphs. I think this is how you get your glyphs. I don't know if they drop everywhere else. Gems, gear, crafting mats. And it can include Nightmare Sigils, which basically unlocks Nightmare Dungeons, which is like the true endgame, the, I don't know, equivalent to a Greater Rift. And then they obviously talked about some of those like capstone dungeons that they're planning on releasing. Most likely with story arcs, which might play out kind of like a raid, but if they make them single player balanced, I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm sure you could watch a video on it. They might require more than one player to do. They might have mentioned that, but it's been a while since I watched the pre-release Diablo stuff. But that kind of covers Endgame. You're kind of just building your character and getting stronger, and then playing the harder content. If that's your thing, then you'll probably enjoy Endgame. If, you know, you wanted a really deep social clan system where, you know, you have like activities like an MMO, that's not really going to be a thing in this game. But most MMOs don't have that so much anymore. It's kind of the more niche like roleplay servers that do stuff like that on MMOs. Most people, you know, group up for raids anymore, which, you know, is a social thing. You know, you set a time for the week where everyone can group up and do raids and get all the stuff they need to get done. But in general, the end game is a bit underwhelming for me. I might really enjoy the Nightmare Dungeons and the Capstone Dungeons, but since I haven't got to try them yet, I can't really praise them to the sun and moon, you know? So, in general, they kind of just sound like greater rifts with better boss mechanics. So if you like those, you'll probably like this game's endgame. So what's the verdict? If you played an ARPG before, I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. It doesn't really do anything groundbreaking that other ARPGs haven't done before it. It does everything it wants to do pretty well. Some of the stuff it does excellent. Things where it kind of falls flat on would be like skill morphs and some of the crafting. For example, you can't make your own weapons, especially because I think it would work fantastic with the new system of extracting your legendaries and putting it on your yellows. So you could craft your own yellow and then put your legendaries on it. I just think it would work really well, but it's not in the game. So if you played an ARPG before, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. If you haven't, your first ARPG that you actually get into and get past the learning curve of and get to the end game of, it'd probably be about a 9 out of 10. Just because, I don't know, everyone who I've gotten to play an ARPG, for example, my friend Kieran, when I got him to play Diablo 3, he loved the game. Absolutely in love with it. And when I got my friend Connor to play Path of Exile, he liked the game a lot. It just really depends, you know. If it's your first ARPG, you're in the honeymoon phase, so I'd give it a higher ranking for that. But as someone who's played pretty much every ARPG that's came out, and the, you know, pseudo MMO RPGs like Lost Ark, then I'd probably give it about a 7 out of 10. Thanks for your time, guys, and if you wouldn't mind commenting, you know, I like to reply to that stuff. If you want to hit it with a like, that's dope. If you want to see any more videos from me, let me know. I kind of just make stuff when I feel like it. But if, you know, there's a bunch of you guys who want me to make videos regularly, then I'll make it more of a regular thing.